episode of Cooking for Your Kidneys Quick Tips version, we are going to talk about cooking with cast iron cookware. Now, there are two different types of cast iron. There is the enameled version and there is the non-enameled version, kind of that black and dark colored cookware that we're familiar with. The other is the shiny and often colored cookware. But today's we're going to talk about not the enameled, but the other type, the cast iron. The difference between the two is that the coating on the enamel doesn't allow for absorption of the iron inside of the food that we cook. There are a lot of benefits to cooking with cast iron. One, of course, is that it's a relatively inexpensive piece of cookware to use. You can get them pretty cheap, and they can last a very long time, often even generations. That's one of the great benefits about that. The other benefit, in my mind, is its versatility. There's really nothing you can't cook with cast iron. And I know there's a lot of myths, but we'll get into that. But really, it's very versatile. You can do everything from cooking pizzas in it to frying an egg. You can do things like stews and soups, etc. So really, there's nothing you can't do. In addition, it's a perfect item that can be used from stovetop to oven. Where you start something on the oven, like say chicken, and then finish it inside the oven. That's one of my favorite things to do with meats. With that, I often do it during the winter when I don't have availability of my outside grill. Using cast iron is often a stumbling block for people, but it's really very simple. You just have to properly season your cookware and then season it regularly. What that means is to take a little bit of vegetable oil, rub it all over the pot or pan, including the handle and the underside, and then placing it into an oven at a very low temperature, like 200 degrees, and let it sit there for a couple of hours. That really just kind of seals in all that oil, and that's what keeps it seasoned. There are also some myths about cooking with cast iron, like you can't use acidic foods in there, say tomato-based products or lemons and limes, etc. But that's really a myth. If your cookware is properly seasoned, you can use those things. And in addition, as long as you don't let, let's say, a tomato-based soup or product sit in there for a long time when it's cold, like storing it overnight in the fridge or something, you're not going to have any problems with the breakdown. And that's important to know. So, heat with it, cook with it for a long period of time. Then when it's cooled, remove the food from there. Okay, now for the next part, I just want to remind you, I am not a doctor. I am a chef and a cook. So you need to check with your healthcare professionals about the particular information that applies to you. So how does this apply to CKD patients and or dialysis patients? Well, anemia is a big problem within our community, especially for people on dialysis. And iron deficiency anemia is a particular one that's sometimes associated with blood loss, which can occur during dialysis. Again, check with your doctors about the particular type that you might have. There is an issue of absorption of iron, which means that your body's getting enough, it just can't absorb it into the body. And if that's the case, you want to make sure you're not putting in too much iron that's just sitting there. But I remind you, I am not a doctor. Please check with your healthcare professionals, your dietitian, nurses, etc. In the case that you do have iron deficiency anemia, one thing you can do is to utilize the cast iron to absorb more iron into the food that you're eating to get it into your body. So your dietary iron can be increased by using cast iron cookware. Let me repeat that. Your dietary iron can be increased by utilizing cast iron cookware. And it's not a small amount based on the certain meals, especially if you're cooking, say, like a stew in there that takes a long time and it's wet. The cast iron will absorb into food more readily the longer you cook food in there, and if you're cooking a wet food like a stew or a soup. It's going to give you the greatest amount. But there's still advantages to cooking things that aren't wet and that take a shorter amount of time. So again, it's really important to check to make sure that the type of issues you have, if they're anemia, that it's an iron deficiency anemia and it's a dietary intake type. You'll know that if you're getting iron through your through your doctor, either through an oral pill or through intravenously at dialysis. So in summary, cooking with cast iron can add a lot of iron to your food. It is an inexpensive product that is versatile, long-lasting, durable, and is easy to cook with once you learn those few simple rules about proper seasoning and care. I hope you've enjoyed this quick tip, and if you want more information and more videos, please visit cookingforyourkidneys.com.